Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lisette Coley, and as Vice President of Parapsychology Foundation, on behalf of our Board of Trustees and our President, Eileen Coley, in the little black and red suit behind us, we welcome you all here to Parapsychology Foundation. We're very pleased to have as our presenter this evening Dr. Hans Holzer. Dr. Holzer, as many of you know, is a prolific writer. He has been working in parapsychology for many, many years. I think he's written to total now about 119 books, 2 of which you see here, including the definitive volume of Ghosts, which is styled as the largest and most comprehensive book on documented ghostly phenomena ever written. Dr. Holzer has also been a producer of various film and television programs. His association with Parapsychology Foundation has really predated the establishment of the foundation. The foundation was instituted in 1951 by our founder, Eileen J. Garrett. And Dr. Holzer and Eileen Garrett, apparently in the late 40s, were together doing some investigatory work. So he has, in the interim years, continued to be a good friend to Parapsychology Foundation, and that's why we're very pleased to have him with us tonight. Now, he was with us for a few moments, and apparently he inadvertently took up the wrong box of slides. So he's jumped in a cab in great haste and is making his way back to us. So in the interim, I thought that perhaps we have some very esteemed guests with us tonight. Speaking of old friends at Parapsychology Foundation, we have the past Administrative Secretary of Parapsychology Foundation, Mr. Martin Ebon, with us. And he is eminently able to discuss the subject at hand tonight, survival, psychical research. I mean, he can go through anything in those terms. So perhaps I can prevail upon him to throw it to him, and then following that, while we're waiting for Dr. Holzer, following Mr. Ebon, perhaps we can open up some discussion here in the audience. So thank you for your cooperation, and I'm very happy to give you Martin Ebon.
You've just prevailed. I am not now, nor ever have been, Hans Holzer. I used to be very active in the Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship, where we had any number of clergymen who would be announced as the Reverend Rauscher, the Reverend Holzer, the Reverend this and that. They always used to announce me as the Irreverend Martin Ebon, because I'm taking a very light view of this whole field, because I think that we must keep our sense of balance about everything, particularly in the field of the occult and the psychic, for our own sanity's sake. I don't like it when people become addicted to anything, including running to astrologers or running to psychics or running to mediums. I remember that Mrs. Eileen Garrett, with whom I worked for 12 years, and who of course was a very prominent medium, took the position that it would be improper for any psychic to encourage people to come and come every week, or come and have their life dependent on what might be said by the psychic, or what might be said by an entity who was departed. Because surely the idea was, if somebody did not know anything about the stock market on this level, they might even less know about the stock market on the next level. And so that to be dependent upon the psychic as a, what should I say, exclusion, it would be as inappropriate as being dependent on any other single thing or any other single person in our lives. That it is actually a contributing factor, that if we, for instance, have to make life decisions on our own, life decisions in terms of human relations, in terms of living patterns, in terms of financial and economic things, we must take in our own psychic ability to sense, to intuit, and perhaps to consult in relation to what we can obtain through psychic channels. For instance, if we have had police investigations into crimes, which very often have had psychic help, well, the police departments, if they are mature in the work they are doing, will use their own technical and interrogation techniques and investigative techniques in conjunction with, but not exclusively based, on, shall we say, a psychic's instructions as to where the clues for a certain criminal activities might be. And in fact, of course, it's particularly in this field where I will have, some of my best friends are psychic, I can say this, but for sure, psychics have a tendency to try to avoid becoming involved in situations where they have to make life decisions. Just as a competent and responsible astrologer will not make forecasts about who is going to die or survive or something like that, because we are dealing with, particularly in astrology, with things that do not compel but impel, suggest certain developments. Therefore, the psychic should be used as a supplement, as an integral part of our life pattern. Again, a sort of going back to Eileen Garrett's, what I might call her lessons, which I learned in the 12 years that I worked with her. The psychic must stay within a certain proportion to the rest of life. I remember that I had a letter from a man in Toronto who had read a good number of my books. He said that he and his fiancée had become so psychic that they could not get out of each other's minds. They were forever reading each other's minds telepathically, except when, get this, they were driving in opposite directions on the Trans-Canada Highway. And he couldn't free himself of this intrusion of the psychic. And that, of course, we all realize is a problem. And I said to him, quit this psychic stuff. Get rid of this occult thing. Don't read any more of my books either, you know? And try somehow, make love. Go to the movies, other entertaining activities. And I don't get any laughs in this audience, I can see that. These people are so serious. I am the irreverent one. So I said this to him, go, forget about this field for a while, you've become over-involved. Happily, about 6 months later, I get a letter from him from way out in Vancouver or something like that. He is now involved in installing aluminum slides. And he is very happily no longer suffering from telepathic intrusion. Now, the idea of using the psychic as a natural part of our lives, either our own intuitive or psychic abilities, or by consulting others who have this ability and are able to advise us or to put us in contact with other entities, I think is a valuable thing to know in dealing with all of this. I'm sure that we all, I mean, we can get addicted to food, you can get addicted to lovemaking, you can get addicted to traveling, you can get addicted to shopping, I've heard. No laughs from this, or from nothing, a bunch of sticks in the mud. And so the psychic is part of our lives. And in many ways it is, what shall I say, an unconscious part of our lives. There's so many things that we do that we are not aware of and shouldn't constantly be aware of. The autonomic nervous system that we have within ourselves, within our bodies, within our minds, handles things best when we're not conscious of doing something. Such as, I always like, go ahead and ask a centipede, hey Joe, which foot do you use first? The centipede won't get all mixed up. So don't be too self-conscious about, am I using my psychic powers this way, or is this just because my other senses are working at this? People ask me, you've worked with Eileen Garrett for 12 years, you've written lots of books, not as many as Hans, on the psychic. Are you psychic? Sure I am, because everybody is. But I'm psychic in my own way. I'm a psychic as an author. They come to me and they say, Martin, we need a book on cloning. What do you know about cloning? I don't know anything about cloning. But we need a book in 6 weeks. This was, remember when there was a story that a millionaire had cloned himself somewhere in the South Pacific. And I somehow or other, by some intuitive or psychic feeling, get to the material. I become a magnet for it. And this is part of my living, but I'm not self-conscious about it, just as you in your dealing with other people, and we all use, what shall I say, unknown senses in dealing with each other. By getting impressions, walking into a room, meeting a person across a crowded room, or across a not so crowded room, and that all I think we do for the most part without being self-conscious about it. Being a psychic, and I'm quite sure that among you are people who are well aware of their own psychic powers, there is this problem that you find yourself intruded upon by things you don't want to know. You may not want to know precognitively this, that, or the other event to take place. You may not want to be intruded upon by other people's, what shall I say, emotional problems. I know, for instance, that Eileen Garrett was consulted by a very well-known psychiatrist, Dr. Robert Laidlaw, and when she came home on the evening, after having, shall we say, dealt with the emotional problems of one of the patients, she would have the feeling that she was taking the problem with her. Let us say that this was a person who felt to be possessed by some negative force, a negative entity, that there was a tendency or a possibility that she literally took this entity or this problem home with her, to be able to shed the, what shall I say, the intrusive and obsessive qualities. That is something which a psychic has to develop an immunity to. When you are a physician or a nurse dealing with people who are desperately ill, day in and day out, if you do not develop a sort of Teflon personality, you will then be unable to do your job. And as a psychic, if you are overly sensitive, if you cannot isolate yourself or build up an immunity so that you are not invaded by negative forces, whatever they be, then you cannot function fully as a human being. Therefore, the basic point that we have here is that we must use the psychic as part of our lives. Has Hans come?
No.
No.
No, you're not on the book yet. Doing good.
Okay, thank you very much. If you see the thing, once she turns me on, and she does turn me on, I keep going. The thing is, Hans Holzer and I, for all these years, and I must have known this man for 40 years or something. I'm not that old, am I? He has written almost, not quite twice as many books as I have. I've edited and written about 80. He has done over 100, but of course he re-anthologizes himself. He says, my books are primary proof of reincarnation. They keep coming back. This book, this is a rule, has a wonderful story. He had a book on cats, how a cat looks at life. And he went to a publisher called Black Dog and Leventhal, and he wanted to sell this book. Instead, they made him do this book. And here now is Hans Holzer.
Ladies and gentlemen,
come to the microphone.
ladies and gentlemen, this genius is the victim of Neptune being particularly afflicted in my chart. If you believe in astrology, and I do. And I was warned this morning to watch out. And what happened is, you see this box there? The cover for box number 1 is on box number 2, and the cover for number 2 is on 1. How stupid of me to do this. But I did it. I apologize. But I'm here. And I hope you will see.
Perhaps we would like to take a small break while we just load the slides. If you can just beg your indulgence for a couple minutes more, we'll load the slides,
Fine,
and then
whatever
we'll
you say.
take off really on track. Okay? Thank you.
Now to the serious side of things. All the years that I've worked in psychical research, I've come across one phenomenon that is more puzzling than anything else that I might encounter in research. There is a group of professional parapsychologists, serious, dedicated people, who suffer from an allergy. The allergy is not curable in their lifetime, but it is curable right afterwards. What I'm talking about is the acceptance of a what I call the world. Irene called it once the world next door. The other side of life, makes them very nervous. That's the first allergy they have. They also have some of them, most of them in fact, have a second allergy. They don't like mediums. Now, we all know mediums are like Madame McCarthy on the stage, and she does funny things. And that is a problem because a lot of things will escape them by denying the evidence for both the other side of life, for life after death, if you wish, and for the fine work done by competent mediums. The late Hans Bender in Freiburg, to his dying day, could not accept either one. And he was a fine researcher with that limitation. When I was invited to speak at the university in Freiburg, he took precautions. He wrote a review of my lecture before I delivered it, but he delivered it to the two newspapers, the Social Democratic and the Christian Socialist, just to be sure that that the truth gets out there before any minds get poisoned and all kinds of stuff happens. That's one of the things that I can point out to you. So what I'm saying is that I'm not one of those fellows. Because life is energy, and energy can never be destroyed, it can only be transmuted. Can you hear me without this?
Yes.
The hell with this microphone. And if you can hear me, I don't need it. Looks like I've shaved it. Oh, but can you hear me there? Yes. Can you hear me?
As long as the video
Okay.
is here.
This has very good acoustics, so you should be able to hear me. You don't have to go back to the energy. Einstein has taught us energy can never be destroyed. It can only be transmuted and transformed. Now, if that is so, and it is, then quite obviously we are a complex combination of energy, and we cannot just disappear from this planet completely. I have long been convinced that within our physical bodies there dwells a duplicate, an inner body, like a pneumatic tire inside the outer tire on which the car rides. There's the inner tire that keeps going if the outer tire is no longer there. It keeps going for a little while. But of course the inner body keeps going much longer than that. There is this duplicate and in that duplicate we live not in that outer layer. The outer layer is the suit. The inner layer is us, and all our emotions, all our knowledge, all that which we represent as human beings is deposited in that layer. But because it is connected for the physical lifetime with the outer layer, we have the perception that the physical body is also the seat for personality, which in fact it is not. It has no life of its own. At the time of dissolution of personality, at the time of death, it is totally lifeless and has no value for the inner body when that separation occurs. But the inner body is continuing to be the vehicle, to be the receptacle for everything we are, everything we've created in our lifetime. And coincidentally, I have just recently worked with a British medium, astonishing fellow, by the name of Philip Solomon, who's one of the great deep trance mediums for our time. And together we have put together what I call the protocols of his trance sessions with hundreds of people describing what is life like on the other side. It's a little bit like a travel log. So those who will go there eventually, all of us, will have a better idea what life is like on the other side. I take this quite seriously as simply a continuation of life. And I have nothing against the organized religion. It has its place. But in none of these descriptions have we encountered ladies with goose feathers on their back or fellows in red underwear with pitchforks so far. But then again, we don't know what's yet ahead. There is, however, a world that exists concentrically with this world. It isn't up or down, left or right, it is around us. It is merely, and I should explain this before we go to the pictures, it can fill the same spatial area because it vibrates at a different rate of speed, a little bit like polarized light and ordinary light can coexist in the same physical space because they vibrate, if you wish, or they move at different angles to each other, so they don't hit each other. And the difference between the physical world and our physical bodies and the other side and our spiritual bodies, etheric bodies, if you wish, is simply a rate of speed. It is just as material as this world, but it is the particles are strung together at a different, in a different way. In the physical world, the particles are quite close to each other, creating the feeling of density in a physical three-dimensional world. In the other side world, the particles are strung further out. There's more space in between, and therefore it is a less denser world, but in principle it is also a tangible world. It is also consisting of particles of energy. And here we come to that old story about energy and matter being really one under different conditions, different pressures, different conditions, but they are one and the same. It's a little bit like Swiss cheese. The holes are different between the physical world and the next world. Next door is the world we call the other side. But it is as tangible, as real to those who are in it. And the important thing is that while we can only visit there by speeding up our particles' movement temporarily, if you wish, or permanently after we pass into it, and they, on the other hand, can slow down their movement easily if they wish to visit with us. That's much easier than the other way around. Having said this, and having been a half hour late, I will now go to the part that is more important, perhaps, than some of my ruminations. Psychic photography came into being, as I'm sure you've heard, in the 1880s, and a fellow named Mumler I believe in Boston, accidentally stumbled upon that in the days of wet plates, in the days when photography was primitive, and in the days when, of course, it was easy to fake psychic photographs. I'm not saying that he did or that anybody else necessarily did, but with the technical conditions of the past, at least in principle, counterfeiting spirit pictures, psychic photography, was possible. It is no longer possible in a world where we have Polaroid photography, or even in a world where we can strictly supervise the conditions under which a picture is taken. Now, I'd like to say this right up front. Everything that you're going to see was taken under conditions, both camera, film, or Polaroid picture, that totally excludes counterfeiting, fakery, or illusion. none of this is counterfeit. Either I was there when it was taken, or I brought the film, or the film was inspected by me. All the usual, which we call scientific test conditions, have been observed. So if you have any doubts about something you're going to see, one of the things you have to exclude, which is fakery, accidental overexposure, underexposure, light leaks, and whatever else you want. Those things do not take place here. Finally, I should explain, as if you didn't know this, of course, that pictures have occurred in three categories. Just as the citizens of the world next door fall into different categories. When somebody has passed on and wishes to let us know of that fact, then we are dealing with spirit photography. When somebody has died traumatically in a trauma which shows that that person has not adjusted to the world he is now in, because sometimes it's in the world in between that such a person unfortunately stuck. Neither of that world nor still of ours. We call them ghosts, phantoms. That's another category. And finally, there are a vast amount of photographic records of energy itself. That is to say, what used to be called ectoplasm in building. Before it is formed into a form of a human being, enormous amounts of energy can be photographed in this manner. Sometimes in churches, because in churches a lot of this energy is created by prayer. Sometimes with a deep trance medium allowing it to come from his or her body. But they are not really people yet, but they are things that oughtn't to be there under ordinary conditions. All right, now, with that, having said that, by the way, I think we ought to go in medias res, as they used to say in Rome. I didn't say it, I wasn't there. We need the lights out. Can we get the ceiling lights out? What you see here on the right is a picture of my late mother that appeared spontaneously on unexposed photographic paper before millions of television viewers on Channel 5 in New York. To my amazement, and to the great amazement of Mike Wallace, because he's really a skeptic, if you pardon the expression. But there it was, and I matched it with a photograph of my late mother from the family album. Now, there's no way this could have happened. Mike Wallace bought a pack of unexposed photographic paper, mind you, no camera. All I brought was a man named John Myers, a dentist from England who was a physical medium, a photography medium. His presence, his body is the camera. He had no way to touch the paper, no way to interfere in anything. All he was doing, he sat there and he said, now. And at that moment, this happened. No way it could be otherwise. You can clearly see this is the same person, although in a more spiritual way, that you see these whitish things there, because it takes energy matter to create these photographs on the light sensitive surface. Let's get the next one. This was done under my supervision in John Myers' apartment when we were experimenting for possible spirit photograph, among others, and again under test conditions. What showed up was this face on the left. It turned out to be an aunt of mine, to which of course John Myers would have no access or knowledge even. She died during the war, we don't know where, but she died. And on the right you can see what she looked like in life, as a young woman.
May have the next one. I then went to San Francisco, where this man lived. Dr. Andrew Hans Holzer is a medical doctor specializing in rejuvenation therapy. And he is very embarrassed by the fact that he has mediumship of a psychic kind. The psychic mediumship started in his life rather as a surprise. He is a photography buff, and he took some pictures at a surgery belonging to a colleague of his. Just for the fun of it, there was no intention. And unfortunately, the portrait of a young woman that had died that morning on that other surgeon's table showed up, which caused his colleague to throw him out, accusing him of fakery, and it also evoked my interest. And what you see here is so patently fake that one would think it is, but it isn't, because I was there. The film this is Polaroid film, and people show up here, interesting enough, who are great celebrities. Now one would say, oh, celebrities. But the same bloody celebrities have also shown in other photography sessions elsewhere. They are just hams. They would like to do this. The one on the left is Al Smith. The one on the right is one of the Rockefellers, the elder Rockefeller. There was no way Dr. Van Salzer could have faked. There's no way. Let's try the next one. Yes, again, I think we have them reversed, but it doesn't matter. The word war appears up there on the wall. This was in the 60s, during the Vietnam War. The word war suddenly appeared on this, like it looks like soap, but it isn't. You know, the lefts and rights are reversed, but we can't do much. Can you do something about that? No. No, we go on. Okay, next. I wasn't there when this was taken. This Indian guy belonged to this lady who's long since passed away in Cincinnati, Ohio. I can't vouch for this one, but this woman has a lifetime of honesty behind her, and I thought one should include it. It's an interesting picture. Allegedly, these are some spirit people who have communicated through her. Next, please. If you see this, I think there's another one. Underneath is portrait, another portrait, upside down. What happened was, a professional photographer in Los Angeles was doing a school picture, and on the day it was supposed to be taken, one of the teachers died and wasn't there for the picture, for the group picture. She went home, closed up shop, took the last picture out of the printer and locked up. The next morning, she inserted the first picture from some other source, and lo and behold, underneath was the dead teacher's portrait. He wanted to be not forgotten. Next thing. The lady on the right is Sybil Leek, the great medium. The lady on the left, the very famous actress Vivian Lee. Sybil Leek went to a New York photography studio for some publicity shots. And they were normal shots, most of them, except this one. Vivian Lee appeared in it, which was rather shocking since, as far as Sybil was concerned, she was well and hearty in England. Her body was only found 24 hours after this picture was taken. Next, please. What have we got here? So that's recognize this thing. Let's see.
try it again. I think it's upside down. Yes. A reputable New York medium, Betty Ritter, with whom I've worked for years, took this picture under controlled conditions. The medium had just been communicating with a man who wanted to be recognized. He had lost a leg in life, and he needed some way to be recognized. There's no way this white thing appeared on this picture. No way. Next, please. Now, here we have just energy. A body is apparently trying to form. You can see it looks like a shoulder and an arm, but we don't have any head. It looks like a woman's body. There's a woman who specializes in these things. She can produce these things under test conditions at will.
What's her name?
It's a form of energy, of course, or matter, if you wish, depending on which angle you look at it. Next, please. This is more of the same. The whitish thing occurs frequently in churches, but this is much more. You see a part of a body forming. This is all Polaroid material again. No way could this have happened in an empty house. No way. Next, please. This is not a psychic photograph. It's a photograph of a lady with a name, whose name is Mrs. Bauer, upstate New York. She has that gift of being a photography medium. And look what happened. Next.
What did happen?
What happened was some more pictures were taken in her presence. And do the next one. It was upside down. Left and right are reversed. The left and right. Well, it doesn't matter. It is the whitish form of a woman. Somebody very close to her had passed, and she was taking pictures. And just here, you can see the arm forming. Materializations, genuine materializations, when they're genuine, are always white, because the substance used for materializations is albumin and is drawn from the same sources, basically, that are sexual fluids come from the same source. And this is a photograph of a partial materialization. Also, again, taken in a way that no picture could have been possible. Next, please. Yes, this is a ghost I didn't take, but it's so famous that the world knows it. It's we're getting out the ghost pictures. A brown lady of Raynham Hall appeared in Life magazine because it was absolutely genuine. What happened was that the owners of Raynham Hall had hired some photographers to have a survey of the house just for their own personal use. And lo and behold, this among the pictures with this one, a woman descending the staircase. Well, this woman is coming down from a place where a very unfortunate woman had been shut up in the last years of her life for what they used to call not being of the right mind. And she died in that condition. She was the sister of Lord Walpole, the Prime Minister of that in the 18th century. But it's clearly a woman walking down the stairs. When the current owners saw this, they were not too happy, but Life magazine got hold of it and published it. Next, please. Well, this is not. We have to reverse it. Left and right. Oh, Neptune. You could try it again. Yeah, it should be. Can you make it sharper? Make it sharper, all right. Let me see if I can. Yeah, that's good. Turn this on.
over here. See this? 3 cowled monks. Winchester Cathedral. Henry VIII chased the monks out of there, and some got killed in the process. They're walking on a floor that is lower than the one now existing, which makes me think that this is only a psychic impression rather than living monks still existing in a spiritual dimension. And that's one of the problems we have with with ghost apparitions and visual elements, visual phenomena. Frequently, they are only imprints from the past and are not living human beings stuck in between the two worlds. Yes, next please. No, that's clearly upside down. It's still upside down. 180 degrees. Alright, now try to make it sharper. See this here? I call it a girl in a negligee. It's not a curtain. There are no curtains in this room. This is as sharp as you can make it. See this here? This over here is a figure of a young woman in a gown, kind of. There was no curtains. I was in the room. A young woman had been murdered during a wild party in this apartment, this room, and buried in the garden. Next page. Oh, this is upside down. We'll get it right. And this materialization occurred in Long Island. Figure, the woman in her lifetime lived there a long, long time, and the current owner innocently took some pictures, and lo and behold, she hadn't quite left. Little old lady still there, in the basement of her house. Next. This is, of course, the house in Amityville, Long Island. There's nothing to be seen except the house. Now, when I investigated this house with Ethel Myers, we took some pictures while she was in deep trance, and let's see what the next one is. Yeah, well, it's left and right reverse, but still. These should be sharp images, but they're not. The duplicate lines, there's no explanation for this, except energy being superimposed on us by the entity in this area, this room. Next, please. To the naked eye, this is a room where someone was murdered. If you remember the DeFeo case, 6 people were murdered by this young man who's now serving life in Dannemora. But I took this picture with this was Polaroid, and none of this was visible to the naked eye, but look what is all in there. All this energy, all this it shouldn't be there, but it is. Next, please. That is an inn in Pennsylvania. You don't see anything on this, but I'll show you what follows. I was there and with a friend, and she took this picture. Next page. That is me, and this on the right is somebody else. Figure. A boatsman, this is the canal area of Pennsylvania. A boatsman, also named Hans, strangely, died in a fight in this area. This is clearly a materialization photograph. There was nothing visible to the naked eye.
Next please. Yes, there's a beautiful house, a beautiful fireplace down on Gramercy Square. It belonged to a man named Sonnenberg. It's a Sonnenberg mansion. He was a ladies' man. In fact, he's also buried on the premises, which is against the law. And I went there with a medium, and I took some pictures. Now, the next one, try to reverse left and right if you can. No, it's always, no, it's upside down now.
Okay.
Try it upside down. Try it again. Try it again. This is a wall safe. There's a woman's arm reaching out for the safe. You see the hand? Next, please. Listen, all the left and rights are reversed. Can you, as you go along, can you just change it? Okay? Now, this is taken by a photographer's wife, whom I know, who's a very critical person, at Winchester Cathedral, not Winchester Abbey. There's two of them. One is Catholic and one is Church of England. It is the spaghetti effect that is the result of a lot of people praying for long periods of time. They create a reservoir of energy that is just there. Doesn't mean anything except the energy is there. Try the next one. Yeah, this is very interesting because what you see here was taken by the same person at Salisbury Cathedral in the south of England. Now, it is interesting for the following reason. What you see is the letter W, but the letter W written in medieval script. It so happens that William II, Rufus, is buried there, and he never used the Latin form Gulielmus for his name. He used Wilhelmus, and he would have signed with this letter. Next, please. In a house in County Ross in Ireland, a servant girl keeps serving her master even though she's been dead for a long time. I photographed the area where she appeared, and there is some whitish substance here. So, you see this to the left. See, point it out to you. Here, you see this? On the stairs. No way this should appear on the picture. Next, please. In the Basel Cathedral, they had the unfortunate custom of burying people in the walls, and if they were breaking some church laws, they buried them while they were still alive. It's a very strange thing. I took this picture. Try the next one, please. Yes. Can you make it as sharp as that? On a golf course in Northern California, a group of monks, so happened they were Franciscans, got into trouble with the church in Spain by complaining about the conditions under which the native labor was being treated. Dr. Hans Holzer went up there with a camera, had no idea, had never heard of it, and took 2 pictures. You'll see the other one next in a moment. This occurred. The faces, you can see, they are enveloped by flames. There's only one problem with this. Nobody had ever heard of any monks that far north. The research people up in California couldn't help me. But only after I went back to New York and I found with the Hispanic Society up on Broadway, I found a document dated 1532 about this strange labor complaint. What happened is they complained about how the native workers being treated. Instead of helping them, the Spanish crown sent the Dominicans from the Presidio in San Francisco, and you know the Dominicans were the executors of the Inquisition, and they were burned. I took Sybil Leek up there. She hadn't the slightest idea what this was all about. She went into trance on this golf course. This was taken at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I asked her about this, and she also talked about monks, and she said, I said, who was the leader of these people? And she said, Jerome. Well, it turned out that they were known as the Geronimites fathers, rebels in the church. Now the next one, that's the last one, I think. Sharper if you can. Here, this is the same group of monks walking on the same golf course. No way anybody could affect this. And there is a story to it too. I think it's the last one, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, may I have the ceiling lights again, please? I apologize for some of the problems with the slides, but that happens. The Neptune is afflicted. Any questions you want to ask, I'd be very happy to answer.
With Sonnenberg, Ben Sonnenberg, the public relations guy?
What is what?
Public relations?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. He was a PR guy. He bought this mansion on Gramercy Square. He was known for a ladies' man. And the girl reaching out for the wall safe is very interesting. And then he had himself buried on the premises too. I mean, people do these things. But something remains when the physical body is gone. And these are genuine pictures. I mean, they're not thought forms, you know.
Are some of the films more sensitive towards this kind of thing? Certain cameras, what do you use specifically to get this kind of picture?
People used to think that the infrared pictures would give you some unusual results. Actually, that's not true. I found the high-speed film, black and white or color, the higher the speed, the more the result. That was before Polaroid film came along. Polaroid is a high-speed film. And then, you know, you use Polaroid, and it's there. But I must say this. Of all the sightings reported about phantoms, about ghosts, I'm not talking about the spirits of loved ones. I'm talking about ghosts that have whether it's some murder or something like. Frequently, they are only impressions from the past. I would say of all the ghostly sightings, 80% are not individuals who are still there hung up. Maybe 20% are. The rest are just imprints from the past, and even some very good mediums can't tell the difference. Eileen once explained it to me. She said, if you see the same procession as she saw in a church in England at 3 o'clock every day coming in, these monks are coming in, forgot the name of their cathedral in England, the same kind of monks, always at 3 o'clock, always walking the same way. That's it. That's a psychic imprint. But if it changes, or if people see it in different ways or at different times, then it's not an imprint. See, that's the way you can probably tell. Either way, it's energy that has not gone away, and the camera can be used in this way. Yeah.
How about people with a near-death experience? Have you had any experience with that?
There have been no photographic evidence for that. the people in near-death experience talk about the tunnel and they talk about seeing the light, but these are not over there, they're over here. You know, the ghosts and spirits that have been photographed here are in this world, even though they don't belong here.
Are they in some kind of conflict between this
No,
world?
I would think they're simply either they'd like to communicate to let us know that they're still alive, or in the case of ghosts, I think the conflict is they're in a traumatic state, don't understand what has happened to them, but they're still here. These are all human beings or imprints of human beings that haven't gone on. No. Because over there, why manifest when they're over there? They're satisfied. They're settled.
Are people younger after they leave this world?
Yes, they're since the other side is a thought world. It is a thought world, but it is three-dimensional to them. Completely, anything they think becomes real. They go back to their favorite time, to their best time in life, which is not. Young. My mother came back to what appeared to be.
I saw your mother look younger. That's why I
much
mentioned
younger. Yeah, 30s or something like that. And they can do this. However, if they want to impress on us who they are, they will have to be careful about this, that they don't make themselves too young so you won't be recognized. They have to be recognized.
Did your mother contact you when you were here?
Oh yes, my mother has been in touch with me a number of times. Yes.
Through a dream? Or
No. I worked with mediums in dreams years ago. But no, I get messages to people like the English guy, Philip Solomon, and obviously I want proof, evidence that this is really my mother talking, and I've been getting it.
how can you encourage somebody contacting you? Can you do that? Or,
I think the way it works,
technique or anything?
you mean psychically or in terms of photographs?
If you aren't such a hotshot psychic, I mean, just an average person can.
They will communicate with you when they get clearance to do it.
They have to get clearance.
Oh, absolutely. I have gone through hundreds and hundreds of protocols, reports, and it's always a reference to getting clearance or asking the big fellow if it's all right to stay or have to leave. This is a very orderly world.
Does prayer help? Prayer?
If you are a person who believes in prayer, it will certainly.
Do they receive?
Prayers will give you a state of mind, but it's not. This is not religion. Religion is.
No, other than religion. No. I'm talking about spiritual.
Yes, it certainly.
Not organized religion.
No, it certainly does, because there is force beyond all this. That I have no problem with that. What I think the interesting thing is here, and this is the point I wanted to make. It's always evidence, always proof you want, and beyond just mediumship, which is, somebody talking, and you have to get the evidence from the nature of what you get. Here you have cameras, and much of it is photographic paper. A lot of it has only been imprinted. It doesn't require a camera. It requires only one thing, a light-sensitive surface of some kind and a photography medium in the near vicinity. That's the only things you need.
Are you sure the light doesn't play tricks?
No. When my mother appeared on camera Channel 5, all the light in the studio, all the light was one yellow 60-watt bulb to show our hands that we weren't doing any monkey business. And it was Mike Wallace who brought the paper. It was Mike Wallace who opened it, tore the seal on my request, and it was SB who threw the 20 sheets one by one into the development fluid, all of which he had furnished, a non-believer. And as soon as the photographic paper hit the light-sensitive surface, something appeared that shouldn't be there. Hand, writing, other faces. After a while, I looked at it. There was my mother. This wasn't the first thing. Wallace didn't know what my mother looked like. Myers didn't know what my mother looked like. No way. I didn't do it. No way. See?
Who else was in the studio besides?
Yeah, here.
Who else was there besides you and Mike Wallace
Who else is what?
in this
The studio? Nobody. There were three of them. John Myers, of course, the medium.
Ah,
We were up there. Myers, I was in the middle. Myers to my left, and Wallace to my right. This is all.
so
Tell us
you-
more about Myers, because Myers' name keeps coming up. Who was he?
John Myers. John Myers was a very strange man. He was what in England is called a dentist, which is a kind of a low-level dentist in America. He discovered at a certain time that he had the gift of when he was in a place and somebody took a picture, things appeared on them. And eventually he went to a woman named Mrs. Dean, who did this professionally. And when she died, he took over her studio for a while still being a dentist. And he came to America. And here I heard of him. He didn't need this. He was, at that point, he was vice president of a big corporation. And I thought he should be on television, but under the strictest test conditions. And we did it. See? And when I showed the pictures afterwards to Mike Wallace, his comment was, and I quote, "Well, I'll be damned." Unquote. You wanted to ask me something?
Yeah, actually, I had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
But the one about the picture of your mother,
Yeah.
done by John Myers.
Yeah.
How is it that her face is so sharp and clear, and yet there's none of the rest of her body? And on all of these other photographs, it's just blurs of light.
Well, I
How do you
must
explain that?
blame to some degree this machine. They're all very sharp, but they were all upside down and left side. We were totally confused. Okay, but still, she's also surrounded by a white. Do you notice the white thing, like cotton?
Yeah.
The way it works, if they want to send a picture of themselves, they have to remember. They have to remember what they looked like, or what they would like to look like, or a picture of themselves. They have to remember a photograph of themselves. They cannot send thoughts of themselves. There has to be an existing photograph somewhere, or painting, or whatever. And then the next step is energy is drawn from the body, from the solar plexus area of the body of the photography medium. This is a albumin substance. It's whitish and wet, and it is related to sexual fluid. This is deposited first on the light-sensitive surface, and then onto that comes the picture. At least that's what I've been doing. Yes.
Well, okay, another question. You said that in these circumstances, with all these photos you showed, there was no question of any
No what?
trickery. There was no possibility of any fraud.
No.
And yet, I'm a little cautious when we're dealing with professional photographers, just because they have the technical ability to create fraud if they wanted to.
Yeah, but just because somebody has a gun, he's not a murderer. The two cases of photographers we have here, one of them is somebody who was very unpleasantly surprised. You mean the Vivian Lee thing?
Well, yeah, you see,
Well, that
it had
happened
to-
before she was known to be dead.
But the negative could have been doctored later.
That wasn't doctored.
And you said yourself these were publicity photographs.
No. She went there for her own publicity photograph. And Vivian Lee had died without the world knowing it.
But surely the negative was still in the photographer's studio.
There was
when the
no
headlines
negative of
came
this
out.
picture. No such portrait exists. There is no negative of this portrait. It doesn't exist.
So the one of Sybil Leek?
Yes, and the negative has clearly this imposition of another person. There's no
Well,
question about that.
I'm sure it would have been easy to get Vivian
No
Lee's
way,
image
no way.
from
There was no
a number
way
of
that
other
nobody
sources.
did that. Nobody was interested in that. In the
How
other
do you
one,
know?
the professional photographer or the teacher appeared, there was no way this could have happened either.
That looked like a dual exposure.
No, it was not, it's not. I mean, you can,
Probably there was a picture of the teacher from the year before, class
there was,
photograph.
that's probably. Now you talk now like a typical skeptic. There was no picture before he died. When the other pictures taken, I researched
And the
it.
same photographer had not taken those class pictures
No,
the year before?
that's a question I would ask first.
But one has to.
No.
I have two questions.
Yeah, but louder so the others can hear.
I have two questions. The first is, if on the other side you can change your form, appear younger,
Yes.
or add glasses, or whatever, then how do we know when we get a photograph, say, of your mother, it's not my dead grandmother just imposing that image on? I mean, it doesn't seem to prove anything if on the other side anybody could take any shape or image.
I don't think the other side is a circus. Merely, my mother did project her picture to be recognized. That was the whole point. I hadn't had any connection with her, and this was her way of communicating to show that she was still alive on the other side.
But you admitted that on the other pictures there were other things that weren't your mother. There was writing, you said.
Yeah, but there were other people too. Other people, they just don't happen to be in the studio. There was writing. I didn't follow up on any of this because, first of all, this is a television program. There's just so much you could do. And this was something I could immediately verify. The other thing I couldn't.
My second question is on the ethereal body or the second body you were talking about.
There was nothing as good as this that I could have worked with, no.
Okay, but on the second body idea for the other side, does every energy form exist on the other side? I mean, do animals, do plants, all of these are patterns of energies, not to mention radio
Let me put it
waves.
this way, I work with existing things. I don't speculate. Speculation, I leave to Wall Street. I have something here that is investigated. I exclude any fraud or any other self-delusion. When I have that, that's all I need. You know, you can't keep on speculating.
The picture of the monks towards the end of your presentation,
Yeah.
I wasn't able to determine from my position whether the faces of the monks all reflected the same face, but it looked like they might have. I presume you've studied this more
Very
carefully.
carefully. And I might also say the projection is somewhat better. There are 4 monks, 2 rows of monks, and they're enveloped with flames, enveloped by flames.
No, I'm talking about the one in the golf course.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, well, it seemed to me that if there were one monk, and he was, I presume that was not a Polaroid, because you would have seen the
This
flash.
was not a Polaroid
It
camera.
was taken at night.
No, it was not a Polaroid camera.
So
It was not taken at night. Speculation is not
Wasn't
a
it
good idea.
taken at night?
No, it was
looked
taken
like
at
it
4
was
o'clock in the afternoon, and it was taken with a, these two lens, what were they called? When you had 2 lenses.
Stereoscopic.
Stereo,
Right.
wasn't it? Stereo camera. It was taken with a stereo camera. So there are 2 pictures obtained at the same time.
A three-dimensional camera?
No, stereo camera.
Well, one thing about that photograph that struck me was that if a single individual had been walking with a candle, let's say, or something of that sort, and it was a very long exposure because it was
It
pretty
was not a
dark
very
out.
long exposure, and it was not a single person.
Well, the light streak that went across from person to person is pretty much the same as you would get
Well, you can
if
try
you
it, but
carried
I
the
assure you,
candle and stopping every foot that you took so that the people would come into more resolution along with the trail of the light. Just at those
that's a nice
positions
story,
where they
just
were
doesn't
stopped.
fit.
Well, one has to,
No,
imagine.
I know the
different scenarios.
exposure, exact exposure. It was a quick exposure with a stereo camera. It was done by Dr. Hans Holzer. And I
Were
have
you
the
there?
originals, yeah. Yeah, I have the original negatives.
You were
Yeah.
there in the.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Holzer, it's so good
Yeah.
to meet you
Who
after
wants
all.
to ask?
It's so good to meet you after all these years of reading your work. what I wanted to know is, have you heard of Lawrence Leshane?
What?
Lawrence Leshane?
Dr. Leshane?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's a healer. I was reading recently his book, How to Meditate.
Yeah.
And he had a passage there when he was talking about, like, I guess, a chapter on the occult. And he says, well, when you meditate, when you get to a certain level, yes, you're going to be able to do all these things. You're going to be able to see apparitions. You're going to be able to do telepathy, all this type of stuff. But he says, well, it's like if you were in front of a teacher, the teacher will say, "Oh, nice child, that's very good, but move on." Move on past it. I was very disappointed to hear that.
Dr. Leshane, because I really can't answer for him.
Yeah, I just wondered if you.
I'm a technical researcher, and the evidence is there that I'm satisfied. Yes.
About halfway through the presentation, there was a photograph of looked like a gray-haired woman in her garden with trellising over the top.
A what?
She had a gray-haired woman in her garden outside with trellising over the top. She was one of the adepts. I wonder if anybody else saw anything else in that picture, or do I really need glasses? It seemed to me that on the upper left-hand side of the picture, just above this trellis work,
possible if you go
I saw a young woman's head. Or did I?
Thank you, because this is Miss Bauer in
Right.
Yeah, I was so taken with the materialization of the woman, the naked woman, so to speak, that I didn't look anywhere for the other details. It may well be this happens.
Did anyone else see anything there? The upper left-hand corner. Maybe it's the top of the tree. Maybe
Well,
I
I
need
look at
glasses.
it again.
But look and see
I look at it again.
what that thing is. There's something there.
I have published the most of the photographs in a book called Life Beyond, and for those who are interested. I'm pretty sure what we have here is genuine photographs, but yes.
Hi, I was a professional photographer.
I can't hear you.
I was a professional photographer for many years in the 80s, and Carlos Osis asked me at one point to take pictures for him. But he always wanted me to have like a signed affidavit from the person doing the developing and the person doing the printing saying that no other hands were involved. And my concern is that, this is really based on your
well, in most cases,
testimony that these are authentic. But, as any photographer or videographer knows, there's so many ways to manipulate an image that I can't accept
I agree with you, but they were not under these conditions. That's the point.
But we're dependent on you to tell us what those conditions are.
But I tell you, it depends on what I have found out. What I found, I have gone after the negative. I have gone when there is a negative. I was there.
But you're not a professional photographer. A negative can be manipulated
I am a photographer.
in so many different ways. A professional.
I'm also a photographer, and I have published 3 books of photography. Yes, I know what can be done, and it hasn't been done.
I just feel like if you work with a team,
I'm sorry, but
it's just difficult because because it's just we're
just
relying
because
on
somebody has a gun doesn't mean that he's a murderer. But in this case, whenever a professional photographer is involved, I was also involved from the beginning. I inspected or provided the film or the cassette, and there was no way in which anything could have been slipped in. And the development was done on the spot with Polaroid. There just wasn't anything. Just because it's possible doesn't mean it had to be.
No, of course not. But I guess what I'm suggesting is if
I
the
think
team.
it's a legitimate question. But I asked this question a long time ago already, because I was there. Yes.
Who claimed this was Vivian Lee? Because it didn't look like Vivian Lee.
But that was identified, of course. She had a relationship with Vivian Lee. She was a close friend. Sybil Lee, yes. She had a sitting with her just a few days before her death. And she knew her very well. Oh, sure, it was identified. Yeah.
Has anybody described the physical appearance of the other side that you know of?
The physical...
Is there a physical appearance of the other side?
Of what?
Like cities or
yes, that is what I just finished this book, but it's not published yet. It's not published yet. It's beyond that. It's the protocols of this fabulous medium. When it gets published, then there you have all that in there. His work.
Do people live in houses or what? Do people that passed on have a house or?
They have everything we have. They assured me again and again, they have everything we have whenever they want it. Yeah, it's amazing. I was shocked to hear this. That's why I read the book. Yeah.
Is the astral body the same?
what?
The astral
The
body.
etheric body, in the
Is
body,
it the
yeah.
same body that would manifest on the other side? The
Yes.
astral body, because I have seen occasionally people's astral bodies. So once their physical body's gone, that astral body
It's a
that I
duplicate.
saw is
Yeah.
the one that would go over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Duplicate, yeah. But, yeah, there's somebody.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I think you have to accept my word that I've talked to the people who did it, if I wasn't there. I've looked in the laboratories. None of this material is fake. I don't say that there couldn't be fakes, of course. But lately that is less and less because there's just too many ways to check up on things. It's become much more difficult to fake. Now, in the time when John Myers was working, he was accused by an English journalist of having concocted some psychic photography, and he sued him and won. Because he had the wet plates, there was no way, the plates were there. It's easy to accuse, but if you have the evidence to answer, then I don't think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Was the segment with Mike Wallace where your mother's picture appeared, was that actually broadcast?
Oh, sure.
Does footage of
Oh,
that
yeah,
still exist?
Yeah.
Was
The
that?
show called, what was it called? Something East. Yeah. On Channel 5, New York. Yeah. Metro Media.
Mhm. Would be interesting to
Yeah.
see.
And, but this sort of thing is far from unique. It is not anything that mean anything more than the need to communicate. And as such, you have to accept it. I think it is a valuable tool in addition to having sessions with trance mediums or with clairvoyants, because here you have visual things as well as information about people. Yes.
So this photography was Curlian, right?
What?
It was Curlian photography then?
Now, Curlian photography is absolutely worthless from my point of view because it puts an alien element into a living being, and then what you get then is not what you get from the other side. It's what you put in. You have a totally different aspect. Curlian photography has nothing to do with it. But I think if you want to see whether you can be a psychic photographer, whether you have the talent, I suggest you try in going to places that are known to be haunted, for instance, and you will find them, not only in my books, but there you'll find them for sure. And go with a fast camera, go with a Polaroid camera, and take pictures and see what happens. You might have the gift, you see. There's no way of telling until you try. I mean, the Winchester Cathedral monks walking in the aisles, I had no idea that others had taken pictures there before. I only found it out later when I did some research. I happened to be interested in the cathedral. And we arrived there on a rainy day at 11 o'clock. Rainy days are very good for this for some reason. And I took lots of pictures in the aisle, and there were some ordinary pictures, but then there were this and another one showing a row of monks where the monks hadn't walked in 400 years. Yeah.
Why not go back and conduct a control? Why not go back and conduct a controlled study? Because
I must be getting deaf. I can't hear.
That cathedral is haunted. I've been there, and I know it's
Where?
haunted. Winchester.
Where?
The cathedral that you're talking
Yeah.
about.
You know?
Why not? Yes. Why not go back and conduct a controlled study?
Well, I didn't know when this happened many years ago. I only did research afterwards, and then I found out that others had seen the monks. But I went in there just for a historical church.
But you didn't answer my question.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had no idea until I saw the picture. Yeah.
You said something very interesting just now, that people might have the gift of psychic photography, which makes me wonder if the image on the film is coming from the spirit entity or from the photographer.
No, you don't understand. The gift of psychic photography doesn't create pictures. It only acts as a camera. Your body is the camera. That's all it does. You don't create images. And if you don't have psychic photography gift, mediumship, nothing will happen.
I think what, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what Ruth was saying was that how do we know it's coming from the other world as opposed to just being imprinted, say, for lack of a better word, telekinetically by the living entity, like Ted Sirius.
Depends on the conditions. I know of no case where a person who is a psychic photographer has created an image on film or on paper that does not come from an outside source. I don't know of any.
Well, what about Ted Sirius with his work? Ted Sirius with working with Jewel Eisen.
Ted Sirius is a unique case, and he projected. And this was not quite like it. He didn't project dead things, dead people. He didn't deal with that. He projected distant viewing. What he dealt with is distant viewing. He would see things at a distance and then project them on film. That's a different field.
He also did celebrities, not unlike some of the things we saw here. You know.
But he did not. He does not project any spirits.
Well,
but he projected images.
He projected
images, but not of the dead. That's a difference.
Well, a thought form is a thought form.
No, that makes a difference. Yeah.
Do you think an ionized environment would be interesting to take pictures?
Yes, it might help. Yeah. Especially
like
humid area.
You mentioned the rain, or maybe after.
Yeah, I'm talking about experiences. Anyway, yes. Well, you wanted something.
I just wanted to follow up, I think, a little bit.
I can't hear you.
If you took a picture in Winchester Cathedral and the monks appeared, what ways would there be to follow up on that experience, to learn more about when they appeared, how they appeared, how often they appeared?
I've done that and published it.
I'm sorry, yes. Which of your books, Dr. Holzer?
Oh, it's in several of my books.
Okay.
The latest one is called Ghosts, and before that in other books, because then I discovered that there were a number of instances where people had taken pictures there before, and I didn't know about it.
Have you run into ghosts of slaves or any of the
Have I run into ghosts?
Yeah, ghosts of slaves or anything from the graves that have been dug up architecturally. Have you run into?
No.
Have you gotten into?
Not so far.
Not so far. Okay.
All right.
Not so far, but I'm sure with Dr. Holzer, if there's anything there, he'll dig it up.
Dig it up.
For sure, so I think we'll
know where it is.
For sure, I want to thank you very much. I want to wish you a happy birthday because I understand it's a birthday
Yes, coming getting older.
Very much so, and I thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi there, I'm Lisette Coley. I'm president of Parapsychology Foundation, so welcome to our YouTube channel. We have lots to look at, so please check out our videos. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.